Create a movie scene. It's a war movie. The scene is Vosh, Kyle Kalinske, Ben Shapiro, and Matt Walsh are eating a cold can of beans in the trenches when suddenly the enemy launches an attack. Vosh, Kyle Kalinske, Ben Shapiro, and Matt Walsh huddle in a small dugout, the sound of enemy gunfire ringing in their ears. They're starving, and the only thing they have to eat is a cold can of beans. "This is it, guys," Vosh says, his voice tense. "The enemy is launching an all-out attack. We need to hold this position at all costs." Kyle nods, his face grim. "We'll do our best, but we're vastly outnumbered. We need to hold out for as long as we can and wait for backup to arrive." Just then, the enemy's artillery fire rains down on their position. The four men scramble to take cover. They fight valiantly, their determination and bravery shining through despite the overwhelming odds against them. But as the hours pass, the enemy continues to push forward, but it becomes clear they cannot hold much longer. The four men huddle together, their faces grim as they prepare to make their final stand. "We may not make it out of here alive," Ben Shapiro says, his voice choked with emotion, "but we'll go down fighting for our country, our families, and for each other." The four men nod in silent agreement, their resolve unwavering as they brace for the enemy's final assault. It's a battle they may not win, but they'll go down fighting with honor and courage. Create a movie scene. The scene is set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Vosh, Ben Shapiro, R.M. Brown, and Matt Walsh are four Imperial Guardsmen, desperately defending their bunker from a Tyranid swarm, when suddenly they realize they've run out of ammo. The scene opens on a dark and desolate planet. The sound of gunfire and explosions can be heard in the distance. Vosh, Ben Shapiro, R.M. Brown, and Matt Walsh are huddled inside a small bunker, frantically firing their lasguns at the oncoming Tyranid swarm. The four guardsmen are exhausted and covered in grime and blood. They have been fighting for hours and they're running low on ammunition. "We're almost out of ammo!" R.M. Brown shouts over the noise of the battlefield. "We need to retreat!" Vosh shakes his head. "We cannot retreat, guardsmen. We need to hold this position at all costs. If we fall back, the Tyranids will overrun the entire sector." Suddenly, a loud clanging noise comes from the door of the bunker. The guardsmen turn and see a massive Tyranid warrior pounding the door with its massive claws. "We're not going to last much longer!" Ben Shapiro yells. "We need to do something!" Matt Walsh looks around the bunker, searching for anything they can use as a weapon. His eyes land on a small canister of promethium, used to fuel their lasguns. "I have an idea," Walsh says. "We can use the promethium as a makeshift bomb. If we blow open the door, we might be able to get some of the Tyranids and buy ourselves some time." Vosh nods. "It's worth a try. We don't have any other options." The guardsmen quickly rig their promethium canister to a detonator and set it up next to the door. They take cover behind a nearby wall, and Walsh hits the switch. The canister explodes, blowing open the door and taking out several of the Tyranids. The guardsmen quickly take advantage of the opening and charge out of the bunker, lasguns blazing. They fight bravely, but they are vastly outnumbered by the Tyranids. It is only a matter of time before they are overrun. In their final moments, the guardsmen go down fighting, determined to take as many Tyranids as they can with them. The scene fades to black as the sound of gunfire and screams fills the air. Create a movie scene. It's a sci-fi movie. The scene is that David Dole is the commander of a war vessel in the new human fleet. He is hailed by the commander of an enemy vessel, Matt Walsh, just before he opens fire. David Dole stands on the bridge of his war vessel, his eyes trained on the view screen as he watches the enemy ship approach. His hands are steady at the controls, his body tense with anticipation. "Commander Dole, we are being hailed by the enemy vessel," his second-in-command, Kyle Kalinske, says from beside him. "Put him through," David says, his voice calm and composed, despite the tension in the air. The view screen flickers to life, and the face of the enemy commander, Matt Walsh, appears. His eyes are cold and calculating as he sneers at David. "Commander Dole, it seems that we found ourselves in quite a bit of a predicament," Matt says, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have two options: surrender or face the full brunt of our attack." David's lips curl into a smirk. He leans forward, his eyes locked on Matt's. I'm afraid I can't do that, Commander Walsh. We will never surrender to the likes of you. Prepare to be defeated. Matt's eyes narrow as he bares his teeth in the sand. So be it, Commander Doyle. May the best fleet win. The view screen glows dark. David turns to Kyle. All hands to battle stations. It's time to show these enemies the true power of the human fleet. The ship shudders as it launches into battle. David stands tall and proud as he commands his crew, determined to emerge victorious. It's a battle to the death, and only one fleet will come out on top. Create a movie scene. It's a science fiction movie. The scene is that Jordan Peterson is trapped alone on a derelict vessel, and there is an unknown alien hunting him. The scene opens with Jordan Peterson standing alone in the dark corners of a derelict spacecraft. His eyes are darting around as he tries to find a way out. Suddenly, he hears a strange, guttural noise behind him, and freezes in fear. He knows that he is not alone on this vessel, and that there is something out there, stalking him. Peterson tries to stay calm as he searches for his weapon or a hiding place. The corridors are dark and twisted, and he can't tell where the danger is coming from. As the noises grow louder and closer, Peterson realizes that he has no choice but to face the threat head-on. He grabs a nearby pipe and readies himself for an attack. Suddenly, the creature bursts through the darkness, its razor-sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Peterson swings the pipe with all his might, but the creature dodges and counters, its claws slashing at him. Peterson fights with all his strength, but he is no match for the alien's speed and agility. He is forced to retreat, his heart pounding as he tries to find a way to escape. As the creature closes in for the kill, Peterson makes one last desperate move. He grabs a nearby fire extinguisher and sprays the creature with foam, blinding it and giving him a chance to run. Peterson flees through the corridor, his heart racing as he tries to find a way off the vessel. But the creature is still on his tail, its howls of rage echoing through the corridors. In the end, Peterson is able to outmaneuver the creature and escape the derelict spacecraft, but he knows the danger is far from over, and that he will soon face many more challenges before he can truly be safe. Create a movie scene. The movie is set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Vosh is a commissar in the Imperium of Man, and he believes that one of his guardsmen, Matt Walsh, is spreading heretical ideas among the troops. The scene is Vosh confronting Walsh to determine the depths of his heresy. The scene opens on a bustling barracks on a planet in the Imperium of Man. Vosh, a tall and imposing commissar with a long black coat and a red beret, storms into the room where his guardsmen are resting. He is followed by several other commissars and a group of inquisitional stormtroopers. Vosh approaches Walsh, who is sitting on a bunk reading a book. The other guardsmen nervously look at Vosh as he towers over Walsh. Matt Walsh, Walsh says in a stern voice, you stand accused of heresy against the God Emperor. What do you have to say for yourself? Walsh looks up at Vosh with a calm expression. I have nothing to hide, Commissar. I am a loyal servant of the Emperor, and have done nothing to betray our great cause. Vosh's eyes narrow. Is that so? Then explain why I have received several reports of you spreading heretical ideas amongst the troops, ideas that could weaken our resolve and undermine our mission. Walsh shrugs. I cannot explain that, Commissar. Perhaps it is a misunderstanding, or perhaps someone is trying to frame me, but I assure you, I am loyal to the Emperor and the Imperium. Vosh is not convinced. He pulls out his bolt pistol and points it at Walsh. I will not tolerate heresy, guardsmen. Confess your crimes and repent, or face the Emperor's judgment. Walsh looked at the bolt pistol, and then back at Vosh. He stands up and looks the Commissar in the eye. I have nothing to confess, Commissar. I am a loyal guardsman, and I will face whatever punishment you see fit to give me. But know this, I am no heretic, and I would never betray the Emperor. Vosh hesitates, unsure of what to do. He knows that Walsh could be telling the truth, but he also knows that heresy must be rooted out at all costs. Finally, he lowers his bolt pistol and nods to the Inquisitional stormtroopers. Very well, guardsmen. You'll be taken into custody and questioned by the Inquisition. If you are found guilty of heresy, you will be executed. But if you are innocent, you will be cleared of all charges and returned to your duties. May the Emperor's will be done." The stormtroopers take Walsh into custody as the other guardsmen look on in fear. The scene fades to black as Vosh and the other commissars leave the barracks determined to root out heresy within their ranks. Create a movie scene. It's a medieval drama, and Xanderhal is the Jarl of a small coastal village, when all of a sudden, a fleet of raiders appears in the distance, being led by Shuanhead. The sky was dark and stormy as Xanderhal stood on the battlements of his castle, gazing out at the sea. In the distance, he could see the fleet of raiders approaching, their ships cutting through the dark, choppy waters. "They're here," Xanderhal said to his men, his voice grim. "Get the archers ready. We must hold the castle at all costs." The warriors rushed to obey, readying their bows and arrows as the raider ships drew closer. Xanderhal could see the figure of Shuanhead on the lead ship, her sword held high and a fierce expression on her face. "Open the gates!" Shuanhead shouted as the ship reached the castle walls. "Surrender, and no harm will come to you." Xanderhal sneered. "We will never surrender," he said, his voice carrying across the water. "We will fight to the death to defend our home." Shuanhead's face twisted into anger. "Then you will die," she said, and with a fierce battle cry, she and her men began their final assault on the castle. The battle raged for hours, the sound of swords clashing and arrows flying through the air. Xanderhal fought bravely, his sword flashing as he cut down enemies one by one. But the raiders were relentless, and despite the valiant efforts of Xanderhal and his men, the raiders began to breach the castle walls. Xanderhal knew he could not hold out much longer. Just when all hope seemed to be lost, a loud horn sounded in the distance. Xanderhal looked up to see a large army approaching, banners held high in the wind. "It's the king's army!" Xanderhal shouted, his heart soaring with relief. "We are saved!" The raiders, realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched, quickly retreated. Shuanhead fled the castle, her tail between her legs. Xanderhal and his men cheered as the king's army entered the castle, their victory complete. The people of the village came out of hiding, grateful to be saved from the raiders' wrath. Xanderhal, his heart still pounding with adrenaline, knelt before the king and thanked him for his timely intervention. "We are forever in your debt, your majesty," he said. The king nodded. "You have proven yourself. You are a loyal and brave subject, Xanderhal," he said. "You and your people and your castle are safe under my protection." Xanderhal rose to his feet, his head held high. Despite the destruction and devastation around him, he knew that he had defended his home and his people to the best of his ability, and that was all that mattered. Create a movie scene. It's a Roman period piece. The scene is that Jordan Peterson and Kyle Kulinski are two Roman senators, debating on if Rome should go to war with Gaul. Jordan Peterson and Kyle Kulinski stand at opposite ends of the Senate chamber, their voices echoing off the marble walls as they passionately argue their points. The other senators watch on, hanging on their every word, as the two men debate the decision of whether or not Rome should go to war with Gaul. "Senators, I implore you to consider the consequences of going to war with Gaul," Kyle Kulinski said, his voice measured and thoughtful. "We must weigh the costs against the potential gains, and I fear that the costs will far outweigh any benefits we may reap from victory." Jordan Peterson shakes his head, his voice taking on a more fiery tone. "Nonsense, Kyle! Rome has always been a warrior nation, and we cannot allow ourselves to be seen as weak. If we do not strike first, the Gaul will surely attack us, and our defeat will be certain. We must show our strength and strike while we have the upper hand." The other senators murmur amongst themselves, clearly divided on the issue. Some nod in agreement with Peterson, while others seem to be swayed by Kulinski's words. "Senators, please, let us not rush into this decision," Kulinski says, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "Let us carefully consider all of our options before making a choice which could have disastrous consequences for Rome." But Peterson is undeterred, his voice growing louder and more passionate. "We cannot afford to wait, Kulinski. Rome must act now, or we will surely suffer the consequences. Let us vote and put an end to this debate once and for all." The two senators continue to argue, their voices growing more and more heated as they try and convince the other senators of the righteousness of their cause. The fate of Rome hangs in the balance, and only time will tell which senator's words will win the day. Create a movie scene. The movie scene is that Tim Pool has gone off the deep end and has started taking hostages at his compound. Hassan Piker, an expert FBI negotiator, is called in to handle the scene. Tim Pool paced nervously back and forth in the dusty compound, his eyes wild with desperation. He clutched pistol tightly in his hand, his knuckles white with tension. The hostages huddled together in the corner of the room, their faces pale with fear. Suddenly, the door to the compound opens and a team of heavily armed FBI agents rushed in. Taking positions around the room, in the center of the group stood Hassan Piker, an expert FBI negotiator, his face calm and collected. "Tim, my name is Hassan and I'm here to help you," Hassan said in a soothing voice. "I know you're going through a tough time right now, but I promise we will work on this and get through it together." Tim sneered, his grip on his pistol tightening. "You can't help me," he spat out. "No one can." "Tim, I understand you're upset," Hassan continued, taking a step closer to him. "But violence is not the answer. Let's talk about this and find a peaceful solution." Tim's eyes darted around the room, his mind racing for a moment. It seemed as though he was considering Hassan's words, but then he shook his head, a look of determination crossing his face. "No, I can't go back now," he said firmly. "I'm not giving up without a fight." Hassan sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he was determined to do whatever it took to bring in Tim peacefully and keep the hostages safe. "Tim, please listen to me," Hassan said, his voice calm and steady. "You don't have to do this. You can still turn yourself in and get the help you need. Let's end this now before anyone else gets hurt." Tim paused, his finger hovering over the trigger of his gun. For a moment, it seemed as though he was about to give in, but then he shook his head, a cold look in his eyes. "No, I can't do that," he said firmly. "I'm gonna fight to the end." Hassan sighed. Knowing that the situation was rapidly deteriorating, he had to act fast. Before things got worse, he signaled his team and they moved in to take Tim down. It was a tense and chaotic scene, but eventually Tim was subdued and the hostages were freed. Thanks to Hassan's expert negotiating skills, no one was seriously hurt. The situation had been diffused and justice would be served. Create a movie scene. It's a political drama. On the congressional floor, a fistfight breaks out over a new bill between political opponents, Tim Pool and Matt Binder, as they debate the merits of proper hand washing. Tim Pool and Matt Binder stand at opposite ends of the congressional floor, their faces flushed with anger as they prepare to engage in a heated debate over a new bill on proper hand washing. "The bill's a joke, Binder," Tim sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. "It's a waste of time and taxpayer money, and it's nothing more than a distraction from the real issues facing our country." "You're wrong, Pool," Matt retorts, his voice equally venomous. "The bill is critical to public health, and it's our duty as lawmakers to prioritize the well-being of our constituents. Your lack of concern for their safety is truly shameful." The two men continue to argue, their voices growing louder and more heated. The tension in the room becomes palatable. Suddenly, Tim takes a step forward and throws a punch at Matt, catching him off guard. Matt stumbles back, shock and anger flashing through his eyes as he rubs his jaw. He takes a deep breath, trying to calm himself, but it's clear that he's reached his breaking point. "You want to fight, Pool? Fine, let's do this," Matt says, his voice cold and determined. The two men square off, their fists flying, as they engage in a heated fist fight on the congressional floor. The other lawmakers watch in shock and horror as the two political opponents engage in a no-holds-barred brawl. It's a scene of utter chaos and pandemonium, and it's clear things will never be the same in the world of politics. Create a movie scene. It's a documentary. The scene is from the documentary when YouTuber RM Brown went on the Tim Pool show. While on the show, RM Brown suddenly stands up and begins knocking all the weapons off Tim's walls. Stunned, Tim doesn't know what to do now. The camera pans across Tim Pool's living room, where YouTuber RM Brown is sitting on a couch opposite him. The two men are engaged in a lively debate, their voices raised as they argue over a controversial topic. Suddenly, RM Brown stands up, a wild look in his eyes. He begins pacing back and forth, his movements agitated and erratic. "What are you doing, RM?" Tim asks, his tone wary and unsure. RM doesn't respond, instead focusing on the walls of Tim's living room. He begins knocking all the weapons off the walls, his movements becoming more and more frenzied. Tim stands up, his expression stunned and confused. "RM, stop it! What are you doing?" RM doesn't listen. He continues to knock the weapons to the ground as he rants and raves about the dangers of gun violence. The camera zooms in on Tim's face, capturing a look of shock and disbelief as he tries to figure out what's going on with RM. It's clear he's unsure of how to handle the situation. The tension in the room is palpable. As the scene comes to an end, the camera pans to reveal the chaos RM has caused, weapons scattered across the floor as he continues to rant and rave. It's a shocking and unexpected turn of events. It's clear that Tim Pool's show will never be the same again. Create a movie scene. It's a science fiction movie. The scene is that Ben Shapiro and Vosh have swapped bodies, and now they don't know what to do. The scene opens with Ben Shapiro and Vosh standing in the middle of a bustling city. They are staring at each other with shock and confusion. They realize that they have swapped bodies. "What the hell is going on?" Ben shouts, his voice coming out of Vosh's mouth. "I have no idea," Vosh replies, his voice coming out of Ben's mouth. "But we have to figure out a way to switch back before it's too late." Ben and Vosh try and think of a solution, but they are at a loss. They have no idea how this body swap happened and how they can reverse it. "We have to find a way to get help," Ben says, his voice still coming out of Vosh's mouth. "Maybe there's someone who knows how to fix this." "But who will believe us?" Vosh asks, his voice coming out of Ben's mouth. "We're in the wrong bodies, for God's sakes. No one's gonna believe us." Vosh and Ben continue to argue as they try and come up with a plan. But before they can come to a conclusion, they are interrupted by a group of people who recognize them in their new bodies. "Hey, isn't that Ben Shapiro?" one of the people said, pointing at Vosh and Ben's body. "Hey, isn't that Vosh?" says another person, pointing at Ben and Vosh's body. Suddenly, a crowd begins to surround them, shouting questions and accusations. Ben and Vosh are overwhelmed, as they have no idea how to handle the situation. "We gotta get out of here," Ben says, his voice still coming out of Vosh's mouth. "But how?" Vosh asks, his voice coming out of Ben's mouth. Before they can come up with a plan, the crowd becomes more hostile, as they are forced to run for their lives. As they flee through the city streets, they try and escape the angry mob. As they run, they realize they're going to have to figure out how to reverse the body swap on their own, or be trapped in each other's bodies forever. Create a movie scene. It's a psychological thriller. In the scene, RM Brown has just seen Tucker Carlson inappropriately sniffing people around him. RM Brown has an intense internal psychological debate on whether or not he should turn Tucker in. RM Brown stood in the crowded room, his eyes fixated on Tucker Carlson as he moved through the crowd. He watched, horrified, as Tucker leaned in close to people, sniffing them as he passed by. RM felt a wave of disgust wash over him. He knew that he had to do something, but he was torn. Tucker was a powerful and influential figure. RM wasn't sure if he could take him down. "What should I do?" RM muttered to himself, his mind racing. "Should I turn him in, or stay quiet and protect myself?" Just then, Tucker caught his eye and made his way over to RM. "Hey, RM," he said, grinning. "How's it going?" RM forced a smile, his heart pounding. Good," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Tucker leaned in close, his breath hot on RM's neck. "You smell good," he said before turning and walking away. RM's stomach turned. He knew that he had to do something, but he was terrified of the consequences. He looked around the room, hoping to find someone who could help him. Suddenly, his eyes landed on a familiar face. It was a journalist who had been investigating Tucker's strange behavior for months. RM made his way over to her, pulling her aside. "I have something to tell you," RM said, his voice shaking. There's something that you need to know about Tucker. The journalist's eyes widened. What is it? Her voice said, eager. RM took a deep breath and told her everything that he had seen. The journalist's face grew grim as she listened. This is huge, she said, her voice low. This could be the proof we need to take Tucker down. RM felt a surge of fear and excitement. He knew that he had made the right decision, but he also knew that there would be consequences. Are you sure you want to do this? The journalist asked, her hand on RM's arm. It could be dangerous. RM nodded, his jaw set. I have to do the right thing, he said, his voice firm, no matter the cost. The journalist nodded, a determined look in her eyes. Then let's do this, she said, and together they set out to expose Tucker's dark secret and bring him to justice. Create a movie scene. It's a musical. The scene is that Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens are in the middle of an epic spoken word sing-off dance battle for the title of Ultimate Fighting Champion. The stage is set, the crowd is cheering, and the tension is thick as Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens square off against each other in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The two women are known for their fierce debating skills and a razor-sharp wit, and now they are putting it on the line in a high-stakes spoken word sing-off dance battle. Anna is dressed in a flashy sequined jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun as she bounces on the balls of her feet, ready to take on her opponent. Candace, on the other hand, is dressed in a sleek black bodysuit with a fierce scowl on her face. The music starts, and Anna launches into an electrifying rap, her words flowing effortlessly as she weaves a tale of determination and perseverance. The crowd cheers and claps along with her as she spits fire, her voice raising above the din of music. But Candace is not to be outdone. She starts off slow and steady, her voice smooth as she tells a story of struggle and triumph. The crowd hangs on her every word, mesmerized by her talent and charisma. As the battle heats up, both women start to incorporate dance moves into their performance, their bodies moving in sync with the music as they go head to head in a fierce display of talent. The crowd is on the edge of their seats, unsure of who will come out on top. But in the end, it is Anna who triumphs, her powerful voice and electrifying dance moves earning her the title of Ultimate Fighting Champion. She raises her arms in victory as the crowd erupts in cheers and applause, a fitting end to the thrilling and intense battle. Create a movie scene. It's a soap opera. And in the scene, Matt Walsh is struggling with the fact he is in love with Ben Shapiro's wife, and he can no longer hide his extreme jealousy. Matt Walsh sits at his kitchen table, his head in his hands as he struggles with the overwhelming emotions coursing through his body. He's in love with Ben Shapiro's wife, and the knowledge is tearing him apart. I can't take it anymore, Matt says aloud, his voice strained. I can't stand by and watch him touch her, hold her, kiss her. It's driving me mad. His best friend, Kyle Kalinske, sits across from his expression sympathetic. Matt, you can't let yourself get consumed by jealousy. It's not healthy, and it's not fair to anyone involved. You need to talk to Ben and tell him how you feel. Matt shakes his head, his eyes wild with emotion. I can't do that, Kyle. It would destroy everything. And besides, there's no way she would ever leave him for me. I'm just a hopeless fool, pining for something he can never have. Kyle reaches across the table, takes Matt's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. That's not true, Matt. You're a good man, and you deserve to be happy. Don't let your jealousy control you. Talk to Ben and see what happens. You never know unless you try. Matt takes a deep breath, his heart heavy with indecision. He knows Kyle is right, but the thought of confessing his feelings to Ben and potentially losing his friendship is terrifying. But he knows that he can't go on living like this, consumed by jealousy and longing. With a newfound determination, Matt stands up and squares his shoulders. You're right, Kyle. I need to do this. For my own sanity, and for the sake of my relationship with Ben. It's time to face the truth, no matter how difficult it may be. With a newfound sense of purpose, Matt sets out to confront his feelings and hopefully find a way to move forward. It won't be easy, but he's determined to take control of his life and find a way to be happy. Unfortunately, though, things wouldn't go right for either Matt or Ben. Create a movie scene. It's a soap opera, and Ben Shapiro has just learned that Candace Owens is having a secret love affair with his wife, and he is about to confront Candace with this newfound truth. The scene opens on Ben Shapiro, standing in the doorway of Candace Owens' office. He is seething with anger, his face red with rage. "Candace," he says, his voice low and menacing, "we need to talk." Candace looks up from her desk, surprised by the sudden interruption. She tries to play it cool, but she can see the anger in Ben's eyes. "What's going on, Ben?" she asks, trying to keep her voice steady. "You know damn well what's going on," Ben said, his voice raising. "I just found out you've been having an affair with my wife." Candace's eyes widen in shock. She had not expected Ben to find out about their secret relationship. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammers, trying to deny the truth. "Don't lie to me, Candace," Ben says, taking a step closer to her. "I have the proof. I have the text. I have the emails, the receipts. It's all there, in black and white." Candace knows that she has been caught, and she has no choice but to confess. "Okay, fine," she says, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "It's true. I've been having an affair with your wife, but I swear it wasn't just about the sex. I love her, Ben. I really do." Ben can feel his heart breaking as he realizes the depths of Candace's betrayal. "How could you do this to me?" he says, his voice filled with pain. "How could you betray our friendship, our political alliance like this?" Candace looks down at the floor, unable to meet Ben's gaze. "I'm sorry, Ben," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but please try to understand. I love her, and she loves me. We couldn't help ourselves." Ben is silent for a moment as he struggles to process the revelations of the past few minutes. "I can't forgive you, Candace," he says finally, his voice cold and distant. "But I can't hate you either. You're still my friend, and I still care about you. But this changes everything. Our political alliance, our friendship, it's all over. You're on your own now, Candace, and you have to live with the consequences of your actions." With that, Ben turns and walks out of the office, leaving Candace alone to face the aftermath of her betrayal. Well, I know things might be looking dark, but we've got one last story, and we're going to end it off on a high note. And thankfully, Ben will find true love, after all. Create a romance story about a hot and heavy secret love affair between Ben Shapiro and Vosh. Once upon a time, Ben Shapiro and Vosh were bitter political rivals, locked in a never-ending battle of words and ideas. But one day, they stumbled upon a discovery that would change their lives forever. They had a secret love for each other. At first, they tried to deny their feelings, but they could not resist the pull of their passion. They would meet in secret, in hidden corners of the city, and spend hours talking, laughing, and exploring each other's bodies. Their love was hot and heavy. They could not get enough of each other. They would sneak away from their public lives and escape to a world of their own making, where their love could flourish and grow. But their secret was not meant to last. Soon, rumors began to spread, and they were forced to confront the truth of their relationship. They knew that they would face backlash and judgment from the outside world, but they did not care. They were in love, and nothing could tear them apart. In the end, Ben and Vosh decided to come out as a couple and face the consequences together. They knew their love would not be accepted by everybody, and they were ready to fight for it. And in the end, their love conquered all, and they lived happily ever after.